So then, welcome on how to remove the interior boot trim pieces from a Skoda Octavia. This is a 2016 Mk3 Combi Scout model. These Scouts shouldn't make much of a difference. The main difference is probably the fact that this has the variable boot floor, or the false floor as I like to call it. I will show a Skoda Octavia without the variable boot floor in later part of this video. So firstly, obviously we want to empty everything, take everything from on top of and underneath the boot floor, make sure we've removed our roof rack bars, make sure we've removed the parcel shelf. We also want to put the seats down, make some space for us. We then want to remove the various ancillary easily removable parts. So these, they should just lift up like that. It's just a little clip that just clips out. This one has a handle little hole and it just clips out. We can then put these to the side. And then we need to remove these sections. There are little tabs which poke into the fabric lining here and here, and it's normally just a case of getting these out of the, getting those tabs out of the fabric with a bit of fiddling like so, and then giving it a general wiggle. That out of the way, and then likewise here, get the tab there, give it a bit of a wiggle, and it should come. Should come out. So these are fixed by this tab clicking down here, these two tabs clicking into these holes here and here. And also there's a little loop here, which there is a clip on the underside there, which clips onto that. Put that to the side. Good. We next need to remove the variable boot floor. So there's a few things. Firstly, you see this little lever down here. We slide this out, that unlocks it here to lift up. And we have the same lever here. This requires two hands, so give me a second. Good, and with those lifted and those levers moved and lifted, we can see the braces. And this is actually why I'm taking the boot apart today, is this brace here is broken, the plastic part. It should look something like that. And so this boot floor sags down in the corner over there. We've got these parts here which twist. Just get those horizontal, and that releases the brace. That's a bit of a fiddly one with one hand. Okay, and once that's released, we should just be able to give it a wiggle and lift it out. Fold it up nicely, and we can lift this out and put it to the side. With the variable boot floor removed, we can then lift up and just pull out the spare wheel cover. We'll put that next to it, somewhere out the way. There you go. And we've got all of our spare wheel and high-vis jackets and all that kind of stuff that we should keep in our car. And now we can start to unbolt things. So, tools wise, there's a variety of tools that we'll need. There's a variety of things that we'll unscrew. So these luggage hooks, shopping bag hooks, these flip down, and there's a bolt in there, and there's two here. There is a bolt in the cubby hole where the parcel shelf sits. Ignore this, this is just screwed into the plastic. This is something I added later. We have a few of these plastic screws, and ones of bolts, which are really annoying because they like to break. And we also have these little luggage hooks, which have little hooks here. There's a couple of bolts behind this piece of plastic, and there is also a bolt underneath this. There's this little piece of plastic flips down, but we'll get to that in a second. For the tools we need, it's fairly simple. I've got some trim removal tools. It's useful to have one with a fork on it like this. I've got both plastic and metal ones. Shouldn't really make much of a difference. And then kind of general ones of various sizes and angles, just for getting under that trim and pulling it out. You don't need the full socket set, I just have it here. The most common ones that you'll need are a T20, a T25. You'll also need, I believe, a T30 and maybe a T40 and T45. I've also got the short versions, and you'll also need the spline. I'm pretty sure it's M8. I will check later in the video. You'll also want your ratchet, your holder for your various bolt sizes, and you'll probably end up needing an extension for some of them as well. So before we unbolt anything, we just need to get these side trim pieces out. Easiest way to do that is lock your fingers up into here and pull down. And they just slot out. They've got these little tabs, plastic tabs, which slot in the plastic here. And then you've got your standard bent metal clips here and bent metal clips here. They fix onto here and here, and the holes for them are over there as well. We'll do the same on the other side. Pulling down and out. There we go. Make sure that you've got all the metal clips. These black ones normally stay in place, but these little silvery ones are liable to come out, and they'll stay stuck into the metal hole. And you have to pull them out with a pair of pliers, so bear in mind you check that when you remove these. And now that those trim pieces are removed, you can see there's a little bolt there which needs to come out. So let's get unbolting. So for the luggage shopping bag hooks, I have a T30 Torx. I'll just get that on there, and we'll undo both of these on this side and the other side. Now, with these 4 bolts removed from each little carrier bag strap, there is these are actually just metal. These sit on metal brackets which sit behind the plastic, and then when you bolt through, it holds the plastic and the metal against the body of the car. You can actually just flip these back up, and they should, for the most part, hold themselves in place. Make sure you keep these somewhere safe. It's probably good to have a little pot to keep all your bolts in. Next, we're going to remove these little netting hooks. There's 2 on each side. I decided to go and get my electric ratchet. It's not required. You don't need to buy this brand either. It just works, and it's an absolute godsend if you work on your car regularly. So these are a T20. Loosen it, and we'll take them out. I'll take all 4 out and return it when that's done. Next, we're going to remove these loops. This just folds down, and then you see there's a little clip at the top here. Now, I'm using the blade of my multi-tool because my plastic trim clips aren't really rigid enough to get these open. It's simply a case of inserting it in that little buckle up here, kind of levering it out. It's a bit fiddly, it comes open easy enough. These are the ones that take the M8 spline. And they go in easy enough. So we'll nip these out. Decided to come through the side door for ease of access. We'll just get the spline in there and get out. And voila. Try and keep the bolt in the actual thing, if it comes off the damn spline bit. Please stand by. There we are, bit of fiddling later, and we have the bit out of the bolt. So yes, M8 spline. Try and keep the bolt in with this piece. You can always clip this piece of plastic back in if you really want to, but it shouldn't be necessary. You shouldn't worry too much about the bolt coming out. There are these little plastic things around the edge to try and keep it in. Doesn't really matter if they break. Speaking of which, here's one I broke earlier. The same on the other side. And there we are, all removed. Next we're going to remove the bolts in the little cubby hole for the parcel shelf. These are a T20 Torx. There we are. Then we're going to remove these bolts up here underneath that trim piece. These are a T25. You might want the extension for this. Obviously I've got this electric ratchet, so I don't need it, but it's a bit in there. And there we are. I'll do the same on the other side, and that's most of the metal bolts removed. Next up we have the little plastic nuts. We have 1, 2, 3, and these are T45 on each side. These are part of the variable boot floor. And then you've also got this trim piece here, which is separated from the sides here. This is just center. There's a couple of these little clips here that we'll remove in a second, but there's also 2 little sneaky, again, T45 bolts. You can see those there and there. You shouldn't need to remove the spare wheel, depending on what size it is. I've got a space saver. If you've got a full size, it might be in the way and you have to remove it. Again, these are a T45 Torx. Now, because these are plastic, I'd recommend starting removing them just by hand and not using any power tools. It's really delicate plastic. As you can see, when I removed this before, this one, which is a T30, has got a bit mangled up. These T45s are a bit more resilient because they're larger teeth, but you can just use your ratchet, break those off, and then once it's off, voila. You can see there's a bolt that fell out, so these two screw into, there's bolts protruding out of the frame and actually welded to the chassis, and this one there is a separate bolt, and I'll show you that once this piece is removed. So I'll go along and remove this piece and show you that. There we go, and with these plastic nuts removed, we can see, you know, the welded bolts there and there, part of the chassis because they're painted white. This is meant to be flappy, don't worry about that. And then there's this T30. Again, not so much on the T45s, but on the T30 especially, because it's smaller teeth and it's plastic, it is liable to strip out. So make sure you get your bit in there fully and just loosen it by hand, even though it's twisting out, so I might need to put a larger bit in there. Let's see if we can jam a T40 in there. That might have to be our saving grace. I will do that and we'll see how that works. There we go. Yeah, jamming a T40 in there did successfully remove that. These are meant to be T30. As you can see, the one over here is actually in fairly good nick, and that slots in nicely. But yeah, it's just white plastic, useless. You can buy replacement ones of these. I don't know the part number exactly. It might be on this bolt. I doubt it though. But Skoda-parts.com. They have a pretty comprehensive parts list. You put your VIN in there and you can find everything you need. Now to removing this panel. So we've removed the T30, T45, T45, T45 bolts, and next we need to remove these braces. So they're joined in the middle here. You can see I've put some electrical tape around this joiner to keep them spread apart, and you can see why I'm replacing it. This one's broken. There's a plastic clip that goes into that circular thing there. That's what this should look like, and it should be allowed to rotate around like that. So it's broken off of that, annoyingly. So I'm going to cut this tape and take this part out, and we can take this side bit out. And there we are. That's pulled out. You see it's just this little bent section here that just slots into this plastic piece. And that just pulls out like that. This one's intact. We want to make sure we're not bending it too much because I don't have to order another part and wait 3 weeks for it to come from the Czech Republic. But now that we've removed this, we can remove this plastic piece. And this plastic piece should be as simple as grabbing it and wiggling it. Obviously there's these bolts sticking through in these little loops, so we just want to give it a wiggle. There we are. Put it away, and there you are. This piece of plastic on the end here. This jams into this hole in the body, so we want to pull it out towards the back of the car, where we want these holes to be off these loops as well. And you can see these bolts that were welded to the chassis. And now with these unbolted, we can remove that and give it a gentle wiggle and tug. Ta-da! And obviously this part is still attached, so that comes off. And you can actually see that bolt we were talking about earlier. So obviously the other two are welded. The one furthest to the rear is just got a place in it, place for it in there. Sometimes it'll come out, sometimes it will not, and it will stay there. Doesn't really matter, you can just push it out, but you can also just push it back in. There's a little hex thing for it, the head to sit in. Wonderful. Now that we've removed that, I want to replace this portion. Obviously this part is good, but we want to replace it on the bad side. So simple as removing this screw here. Good. It's actually a T15 to remove this. Why Skoda decides to use every bloody Torx size in their cars, I don't know. But it should just be a case of unscrewing this. Wonderful. This plate comes off. I believe this has a part number on it somewhere. 3V9 864321. That's not what we're interested in. We're actually interested in this part. This is the end of this post. You see it's actually one piece of plastic and it's snapped off. Here's one I bought earlier. And this is 5E9861527A. Carrier bar. I believe the word brace was also in the listing. I'll see if I can put a link in the description of the video. Now the A is important because A is left hand side. There is I believe a 5E9861527B, and I believe the B is the right hand side. I have no idea what the difference is. They look exactly the same to me. I can't see any sort of left or right dissymmetry, but here we are. If I remember rightly, this was £15 plus shipping to the UK, so not the most expensive. I mean, this has been broken since I've owned the car for the past 3 years, and it hasn't really been much of an issue, but as I've been loading up my boot equipment more and more, it started to sag in the back, and I didn't like that, so here we are. With this broken part, we can put it where it belongs, aka the scrap metal trailer. Shot. And we can replace it with the new one. There is this little, and you can see there's a left on that piece. There's a little piece here, and this sits on the back of this, I believe, like that. So this is as the part was upright. So this is the top of it. This would be against the boot floor, and this sits in with the L as if it were proper and upright. Okay, so this can click under here.
Here's what I found.
Series being annoying, and that allows this to rotate around like this, and stop. We don't actually need to go that far. And I'll show you how that works. So we'll click that in there. This little tab goes under here and has a nice little action to it, and that holds that there. Then what we need to do is take this out of the packaging, like so. And with a bit of jiggery pokery, we can turn this around and we can see that this wants to slot in there. So with this piece that we just installed aligned with the left symbol kind of in the same horizontal orientation upright as the rest of the part, this can be slid over and just click in like that. And what you can see is how this is meant to twist. So this slots in here, and with a bit of one-handed magic, it falls out. Wonderful. But basically that twists and allows this to slide, and that slides up and down. This piece can slide up and down the plastic, and this slides down here, so that when you want to move your variable boot floor to the lower level, if you ever want to do that, you can. Right, let me install that black piece again, and then all it is a case of installing that black piece, putting this on, and then putting that part that I've lost now on top. Here we are, we have this piece, screw still in there. You can see there's the screw, there's these little posts. You can see these want to line up with this piece here. So this has got a kind of oval shape, this has got a circle shape, and the screw hole. This has got a circle shape, the screw hole, and the oval shape. So that will line up like that. So what we'll do is we'll take that and the screw, we'll put these to the side, we'll take our new variable boot floor brace arm thing, we'll try and slot that on there. I'm going to use my head to hold it in place. Pop this back on. You can look down the screw hole and see it's all lined up. It should have the flat bit in line with the bar of the brace. Give it a wiggle around, get in there. It's a bit fiddly, especially with one hand. Okay, that's on there. We can put our screw in, start it with the fingers, turn our ratchet to tighten, and do it slowly because obviously we're screwing into plastic, so we don't want to strip anything out. Okay, just make sure that is a suitable tightness by hand. That feels good. And there we are, that is the brace of the variable boot floor replaced. So this just flips out, and this allows it to swivel down, and it also swivels back up and locks in place. And locks in place. Come on, there we go. Wonderful. I'm going to swivel this down to the bottom because it should be a bit more sturdy there, a bit less hanging around. And I will take this piece and the piece that was not broken in the first place, take these out of the car, and we'll put these down to the side. Wonderful. So, oh, the bloody dogs. So as you can see, those all plastic pieces on the side are removed, and we've got these bolts and stuff. Now you may be wondering, what does this look like when you've not got the variable boot floor installed? And it looks like this. So here is a boot without a variable boot floor. Again, this is a 2016 Mk3 Octavia Scout in this estate model rather, and we can see, like on the one with the variable boot floor, we've got these loops. There's just none of the two bolts that are welded into the frame. They just aren't there. So it's just these loops, and these are a case of just popping out. So on the variable boot floor, obviously this, as you can see before, this is just cut out. It looks the same down there as well, and yeah, so you just you just don't have that section cut out, and you don't have the bolts. Instead, you just have the fabric formed over these loops, so this just pulls off this way. So it's nice and easy. Back to the actual car. So back to the variable boot floor. final piece of trim we need to remove before we actually start removing the main bits of trim is this back bit here. This is the rubbish, we can throw that away. Now, as you remember, there's these two T45 screws down here, which I haven't yet removed, which I will do that now. So T45, again, because they're plastic, loosen with my hand first. That's it, get in there. Get that loose. That's that one. Pop that there. And that's that one. Fine, so we've got our 3 different types of plastic screws. We've got these 2, which we've got, which we just took out of that trim piece. We've got these, there should be 6 of these, and these go into these welded bolts here, and the one that is sunk into the piece of plastic. And you've also got 2 of these smaller ones, which are the T30, and they go on this welded bolt here. Now, finally removing this trim piece. So we've removed those 2 bolts, and then we're going to use our forked trim removal. Again, you can use the plastic one if you want. I just use the metal because it's a bit easier. And we get that under. This is difficult to do. Under there we go. We just pull that out like that, and we do the same on the other side. That's fallen down there. Good. Now those trim pieces are removed, little trim plugs, it should just be a case of grabbing the bottom of this. We want to make sure we pull these off the welded bolts that are here. So we see these welded bolts, we want to make sure we pull this trim piece off of those first. Then it's just the little plastic bent clips, metal bent clips, sorry, down here. And it should just be a case of lifting and unclicking it along. So again, making sure that it's off the things, just pulling up, trying to keep this fairly straight. You can see this one has clipped off already, and we can kind of just peel it up like that. You can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4 metal clips which go into these 4 little slotted holes there. Now that's removed. There are this side's missing one from my car, but there is one here. There's another piece of plastic trim clip in here. So again, just use the fork removal tool and drop it down there again. Very good. And then the only things actually holding this in place now is kind of the fact it's all jammed in there, and then the fabric and plastic over this and this loop. There's also little bits of plastic jutting out. These aren't clips, as it were. There's no hooks into this metal. It's just kind of jammed in there, and it kind of pushes down. You can see this one's a bit scored from me removing it previously. There's another one down there as well. And then any other ancillaries. So obviously there's a cable that runs this way to the release for the back seats. So we need to be aware of that. And obviously there's also the cables on these lights. So let's remove these lights. I've got upgraded LED ones. I bought these from Kopacek, Kopacek, Relievers.com. These are bloody brilliant. They're very, very bright, much brighter than the original dull halogen ones. You can probably buy them off of AliExpress as well, but these are the ones that I bought, and they're very, very bright. So we'll remove that. I'll remove the one on the other side, and then it's just a case of pulling and trying not to break stuff. So I've had a bit of a clear up. I've removed all of my tools and all the bolts that I'd undone and the clips that I'd undone and the nuts and all that kind of stuff over to the bench there. Only tools I've got over here now are 2 plastic trim removal tools and this metal one, That should be all I really need currently, because I've removed everything. So I shall start on the left hand side over here. Again, they're pretty equal. The only real difference is the fact that this is a slightly larger space. This has got this step here because underneath here is the one-way vents to equalise the cabin pressure. I've removed both the lights, so there shouldn't be nothing holding us up. These little bolt bits here, they might get caught on the wires. You just have to just slightly gently move them out of the way, and we will basically pull this entire trim piece out this way. So we'll start by getting this up with that, and do the same over there. It's easy enough. Then we want to get this off of this hook and off of this hook. That's basically just a case of pulling in various directions and figuring it out. It might be worth pulling from the top this way. Run your fingers down here, you pull out against it, give it a wiggle, give this a pull. Generally pulling and tugging. Again, this, like I said, this is getting caught on the cables up here, so we'll just push that down and get that past the wires, and we'll just keep pulling away. At this point, I'm going to put down the camera because I need two hands to do this. So you can see it's not really levering at the bottom, so I pull the top out first, pull it out of the back rubber seal, lift that plastic off, lift it off the hooks, and out it comes. And there we are. So as you can see on the camera that's just been there, I kind of jam my fingers under here, push this hole off with this loop, and then get the lift up off the other loop. Then it's just a case of pulling this way. This piece of trim up here might come loose. There's some tabs on this black bit that go into that, and you can actually just grab and pull off like that. And then the piece of trim where the seat belt runs over will probably pop out as well. You can just flip that out like that. And there we are. Now, this is as far as you need to go if, say, for example, you're removing or re-adding these straps or these bits of elastic here, or if, like me, you want to install extra. So I've got the original 12-volt socket, I've got a DIN socket, and I've got another 12-volt socket that I've installed over here. So say if you were doing that, that's all you really need to do to get to the wiring, get to the grounding bolts up there and up there. Or say, for example, if your car has been open and a lot of rain's got in, like mine has, there might be a bit of water down here. This is waterproofed and it will evaporate eventually, but something to be aware of. Also, if you want a secret little hiding space, it's got a bit of space above the wheel well down here. Now, to get the rest of it out, I'm through the side door here. So you can see this trim bit's popped up when we just grabbed it. Again, it's got these little metal clips, which I absolutely hate. So just make sure these haven't fallen out. They like to unclip themselves and then fall right down into here and get hidden behind stuff. You can just pull this. What I'd like to do is actually just pull this out temporarily and just wedge it against the outside of the door. And then we've got a few things to be aware of. One, there's this is already split, and that goes that way. There's this cable. This is the cable from the handle over there to release these seats from the back. And we've also got the trim that runs down to here and under here. Now, there is also a plastic clip here, which we will grab our trim removal tool. Let's see if this one works. I might need the plastic one for a bit of leverage. No, that's fine. That just pulls out nicely. And that should now separate these pieces from this. And now it should just be a case of fiddling. So if all you need to do is just get behind this trim to do wiring or replacing those straps, as I said, this is as far as you really need to go. You don't need to remove the plugs here, and you can just pull it out like this and then clip it all back in. But if you need to remove this entire trim piece, the issue is this carpet trim goes all the way down into the seats. So you have to remove the rear seat. Now, you shouldn't have to remove the actual bottom part of the seat. It should just be like the backrest, I'm hoping. So let's do that. So first of all, we want to unclip this piece of plastic with a bit of buckling. That just folds out like that. And we've got a bolt there. Coming back in from the boot end now. So we've clipped that piece of plastic up. And this is a T30 bolt, which we'll get out. I haven't removed this one before, so I might need to put the phone down for just a second. There we are, and with that loosened, out it comes. We can just grab that, take it out. Now we want to get our tool under this little tab here and lift. It's a bit fiddly. Right, I figured out why this was being a pain. The through back seat thing was, plastic was getting in the way. So I flipped this up now, and I flipped that up. All we need to do, having flipped it up, cat, is wiggle, and it should lift out like that. And now we can see the pivot points for the back seats. We simply grab, lift, and this should just come out. And there we are. So this just pulled off the end here, and we can see the carpet goes around this. We can also see there's another hidden little bugger of a trim clip here, which we can remove. Focus, you fuck. And then we can pull all of this trim. But can you stop doing that? Yes, pull this out. We can pull the seat out of it. And there we are. Obviously the seat belt's through, so you'll need to take the, if you actually want to fully remove it, you'll need to take this bottom seat out and take the seat belt out. But that is something that can be YouTubed because it's a video that's already made. This is Bob. Bob likes the carpet, don't you? It's a YouTube video that's already been made, and it's probably much better than anything I can make. So yes, that is how to remove the trim on a 2016 Mk3 Skoda Octavia Combi with the variable boot and the non-variable boot floor. Now to return all this to its original way. Obviously beware this cable. So I'm going to put the phone down because to do this with one hand is going to be too painful. So I will return once I've done that. Good, well I'm glad I did that and put the camera down, because that would have been nigh impossible one-handed. I've got the trim kit back in, I got this back round, I've got this carpet underneath this plastic trim, the seat back in, and I've got the metal bracket back over. Just going to put the bolt back in, if it wants to go in. Voila, and then this plastic clip, which I've only slightly broken by tearing it down there. Oh well, doesn't really matter. Can wiggle back through, and where does this click? Where does this go? Ah yes, it pulls all the way this way and then kicks in down here. There we are. Required a bit of wiggling and fiddling and this pushing in and this clicking down, but that is together, and we can then put all of this back It's basically everything we've done in reverse. You've got to be careful about slotting these little tabs into these holes on this piece of trim on the C-pillar. So here we are putting this back together. I'm recording this on the GoPro, hence the voiceover. It's quite fiddly, so as I said in the previous clip, we've got to make sure that first of all those plastic little hooks clip into the C-pillar trim. Next we're kind of pushing everything roughly back into place. You see me getting that little loop back on either the bottom, both the bottom and the back, pulling through the cable of the LED boot interior light, making sure that the carrier bag hooks are lined up, clicking them back into place, and here I am just getting it all lined up, getting the plastic back into place. Obviously you've got this two little plasticky pin bits. Remember, they're not hooks, they just kind of jam themselves into the metal. You know, I'm using my hand to flap the rubber seal over the plastic. Helps if you kind of pour it like a cat. It's quite easy and quick to do it that way. That enables me to just get that leverage need, and there we go, it's in there. Making sure everything's in there solidly. Coming around this side now. Again, making sure it's all lined up as it was meant to be into the C-pillar. And just making sure it's all in there snugly. Then we're going to get the seatbelt over the piece of trim that the seatbelt sits on, making sure those clips lined up. This one's really quite fiddly. You've got to be able to look at those clips, make sure they go into the holes in the frame. And I'm just doing that. You see my left hand is kind of pulling at the bottom, and it helps line up the. I'm putting it on the inside even, and that helps line the clips up. And then pushing everything in. There we are. Making sure it's all lined up, and then getting the rubber seal over it. Getting the kind of cap pouring motion again. Getting all the way down to the bottom, and that helps hold it in. Again, this is more fiddly than most other bits, making sure the seatbelt's out the way. The rest of the kind of carpet has got into the right position. It's going over that little bolt there. Having a quick look, and that is getting it all back together. So there we are, it's all back together, all back in place, so we can all start putting screws back in. The trim is just flip it like that with your finger and it goes over like that. There we are. And it's all kind of trimmed back in place, and we can put all the bolts back in. It's a bit fiddly, so that's why I didn't record it directly, but it'll be on the time lapse. And yeah, the main thing, the fiddliest part, is getting this pushed in enough so these clips can click in, making sure this doesn't foul on these wires, and making sure that these plastic bits clip in. I find it's easier to do this piece and then this side piece here. You can put this in afterwards. It's more difficult to put in that first and then the main boot trim. Just making sure those tabs again that are on the edge of here clip into this C-pillar trim here. Firstly, we have our piece of side trim, part of the variable boot floor. So again, this little plastic nodule here, that slots into this hole in the body here. And then we just want to make sure that the loops and these bolts are lined up with the loops and bolt holes. Now is also a good time to get this bolt and put it back into its space here. You see it just slots in like that. I've moved the brace bar, like we said, down to the bottom here, because then that just kind of keeps it laying against the boot floor rather than it sitting at the top and hanging down. Again, I've just bought a new replacement. I don't want to have to buy another one and wait for it to come from the Czech Republic, so we just slot that in there and then just give it a push and it all slots on like that. There we are. And now we can grab our plastic nuts. It's all in a pile here, but it's 1, 2 and 3. We want those. We want a Torx T45, very good. And we also want this with a T30 or a T40 if it's mangled like, where is it? Like this one is, the other smaller bolt, and our ratchet. So we'll start off with our larger bits. Start off just getting them on so we don't cross thread them with our fingers. This one you have to push this flappy bit. So there's the reason for this flapping is you tighten this all the way when you put this in. It's not a case of tightening it and adjusting this. You tighten this all the way, and what this does is that it sits out in normal operation for the variable boot to sit on top of it, and then when you want to lower the variable boot down to the bottom level with nothing under it, if you want to fit a larger item that would foul on the variable boot itself, the idea is that you can then unlock the variable boot with those little tabs we used when we unlocked it initially. These flip down to bring it down to the bottom, and you can push these in, and the variable boot will then slide down rather than sitting on top of it. Will slide down and sit down here. So we get that there, and we'll get this one on here. This one probably requires turning around the right way, and it might require 2 hands just to get it on, because I need to push the bolt on the other side to make sure I don't push it back through. And there we are. So I'm going to tighten these bolts up. I'm going to do them very loosely and very slowly, again with the T45 bit, because again they're plastic and I don't want to strip them out and muller them like I have done this one. I just want to put it on, gently tighten it, and just with a really loose grip, so that when it tightens, that just, yeah, you can feel it and it will stop immediately. And we want to make sure that it's fully engaged as well. If you see here, these teeth are a little bit chewed up. That's probably because I put it in at some point and focus, and I didn't have the teeth fully engaged. We'll make sure it slots all the way in like that. Nice and slowly, or just do it with a hand driver if you really don't want to strip it out. Okay, and then we can just make sure it's tightened the final way. Same over here. Wonderful. And we'll just make sure this is tight as well. Focus, you fuck. Very good. Now, then we've got this little piece here. We just want to make sure this is lined up. Of note, now I'll show you the other side. Of note is this shake-proof washer here. Focus. There we are. Make sure that this lifts up. So it's already currently on the bolt here currently. Make sure that when you slot this in, there's these 2 little tabs, and these just push over the bolt. So you want this to go on the bolt, and then the shake-proof washer on top of that, and then this tightened down on top of it. The one on this side is actually broken. The shake-proof washer itself was completely snapped when I took it apart the first time, and I haven't got any spares, and I can't be bothered to order any spares. It really isn't that big of a deal. It's plastic trim, but just if you've got it, you make sure that it's the side plastic trim, the shake-proof washer, and then the nut. So I shall do that, but I need 2 hands, so I'll put the camera down. Good, now that's on there, we want to make sure that when we're tightening this down, we're pushing this piece of plastic all the way in, so that those 2 tabs, the edge of those 2 tabs are completely contacting the bolt. Again, I need to do this with 2 hands, so you'll see it on the camera over there. And as said, we're pushing the piece of plastic trim in, tightening it down. Be careful, because again, we're tightening plastic onto metal using metal, so we don't want to strip anything out. Making sure it's nice and secure. Nicely done. And there we are. So, with this side trim piece put back in, these are all nice and tight, not too tight. We have the screw here, the screw here, the screws that hold the little hooks here. Obviously we've got the light as well. We've got the 2 bolts that go in here, and the bolt that holds the loop in there. So let me grab all those and we'll start putting those in. So in terms of an order of doing these, it doesn't really matter too much. However, I like to do the bolts for these bag hooks first, because I want this plastic to be loose, because you want to get these to close properly. See, if I just close it like this, it's fouling down here. So when you bolt this in, the metal bracket here doesn't have a hole. It's actually a slot. Here, this is the one from the right hand side. We can see this is a slot, not just a plain hole. What that means is that we want to be able to slide this up and down, and primarily we want to slide this up as far as possible when we're putting that bolt in. Easiest thing to do is to thread the bolt in initially, then push up and tighten down whilst you're pushing it up. What this means is that this is pushed up and the bolt is pushed against the bottom part of this slot, and that gets these in the right place, so they are like this and not down like this one and fouling and not closing properly. Yeah, you can see if I just push that closed, there's a gap at the top. This one where I've pushed it upwards is perfect. So I shall do that. So it's another two-hand job. So here we are, we flip it down, we'll get the bolt onto the end of the bit and get it in there, start it, making sure not to cross thread, pushing up with my left hand and then tightening the bolt down. Now you can also push up from underneath, like behind the main trim. You're going to get your fingers up and actually push directly on the metal. In this, I'm just doing it off by lifting the actual hook itself. And you see here I've doing the second one, tightening it down. Now I don't actually do this perfect the first time. You see how I'm kind of struggling to click it out, so I'll show that now. So you might not always get it first try. On this one I pushed it up and it's fine. This one I pushed it up as much as possible, but when I tightened it I must have let go slightly, and so you see that's fouling down here and it clips. It doesn't really like, so I'm going to loosen this and re-tighten it and try and push it a bit more. So let's try that. And now you see me holding it up with my fingers underneath the bottom of the trim, pushing up, tightening down, and that's in nicely. And there we are. Perfect. That's working as intended now. And so now that we've done those bolts, because they're a bit fiddly to do and you want to get that perfect, and once you've done that, you can kind of do everything else in whichever order you want. So we'll do these little luggage hooks. You see this has got this little shape, and that lines up with the shape on here. Again, most of these, so these bolts and that bolt are into metal. Everything else is into plastic, so just take your time, be nice and gentle, try not to use power tools like I do, because you will likely strip it. So I'm going to start that, and then these are a T20, so I'll get that in my driver. That's not a T20, very helpful. Good, once you've found your T20 bit, it turned out to be right in front of you, you can get that on there. And this is again a two-hand job to hold it in there in the right rotation. And again, it's into plastic, so we don't want to do it too tight, you know, enough to hold it in there. We'll do the same there, and we'll also, whilst we've got the T20 bit in our driver, we'll put the T20 bolt in that little end of the parcel shelf there. There we go. So the T20s are in, and it's just the T25 screw here into this little, that's really fiddly corner, I can't really show you this well. There we go, just into that bit there. And yep, T25, again, it's into plastic, so don't over tighten it. Just be nice and gentle, he says, putting it in a power ratchet and sending it. Fine, that's all you need. And the final bolt to go in on this trim piece is the bolt that holds this loop in, and remember this is an M8 spline. again, this is a two-hand job to hold this in the right place. So you'll see it on the other camera.
What, did you expect a voiceover over this? I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. I'm putting a bolt into the side. You know, I've already showed you everything else before. It's just an M8 spline. It just bolts in. And there you are. It's done. Like that. This is pointless. Why am I here?
There we go. So that's bolted in, nice and tight. That just clicks in. And that folds up. Like that. There we are. So those are all the bolts in on this side. I won't show you that side because it is literally all the exact same stuff. My helper has returned, although I would describe him not as helpful. He insists on scratching on the interior carpet. Bob? Idiot. Good. All these are in and tight. These are all lined up, bolts in there. This light's back in. This is all lined up. These are clicked in, and I've put in the trim clip down here. There is meant to be one on the other side, but like I said, it's gone missing, and it really doesn't make that much of a difference. So now we're going to put the piece of trim that goes here. Now, so the way we do this, we make sure all these clips are in and properly in their slots. Make sure they're not deformed or anything. Make sure this high vis is out of the way and the air is clear. I'm not making life more difficult for myself. And we want to start by getting this lined up over the boot latch, making sure none of these wires, I've got a few extra bits here that are caught. You can see that this is cover that goes down over here. We can have a look down here. We can make sure that these clips going down into their heels. If one's lined up, the rest should be. We can also make sure the rest of the thing is lined up by making sure that these little screws down here, which are bolted to the chassis body, are in the right place. And it should just be a case of pushing down. You should hear 4 clicks. So 1, 2, 3. And I think if I get this trim out of the way, I think that was a 4th in there. I think these both clicked in at the same time. Then you can just do a cat paw motion to flap this rubber seal back over. There we are. And we get our 2 big T45 nuts. Get these starting with our fingers again because we don't want to cross thread them. And as ever, they're plastic, so gently does it, make sure it's fully engaged. And then tighten it by hand the rest of the way. I don't know if there's a specific torque rating, like in Newton meters or anything like that. I think the answer is tight enough so there's no wiggling, but you're not stripping it out. Let's push that. Wonderful. And so it should look like this. This lined up, this under here, and the only thing to do is here and here we have these trim pieces. Just make sure that that piece is fully retracted and we get it in the hole. This is a bit fiddly. Get it. If this comes out the top, that's also fine because we can just push it back in. So get this in the hole. Get the little expansion bit in here. Go on, in you go. And push. There we go. And then repeat. Same on the other side. And the heel over here. In, push, secure. That's this done. Now, I've deliberately left this right hand piece till last because we need to line up these brace parts so they are clicked together properly. So we want to make sure that both of the brace parts are in the same orientation. So I've just chosen down at the bottom because it keeps them tucked into this corner here. And this deliberately has a bit of play in it, so it can slide off both ends, which means that you can line these up, give it a bit of a wiggle. Again, this is a two-hand job, and get them in after I do that. There we are, and so making sure that again they are both in the bottom or in the same orientation, and then we can put this into place just by lining that up and getting those clicked in. You'll notice that this pulls out slightly. That's meant to happen because it wants to have that. It wants to have that movement to actually get it in. What I like to do, as you saw when I removed this, is put a bit of electrical tape around here to stop them slipping together, which isn't much of an issue when they're actually not broken, but just helps. There we are. I have screwed everything in off camera. This is taped in place and up top now. So now we need to put the cover of the spare wheel in. We just tidy all this up. Good, with that all tidied up and put away, we can put the cover of the boot back in. It's good to have this up top now so it's not in the way. Fold that back over. There we go. Wonderful. Now we just need to put in these side pieces, so I'll clear away those tools, and then we put in the variable boot floor and anything else that may have come out of the boot. Right, let's get this in. Like that, make sure the strap's out of the way. Remember, this loop is actually what this clips onto. It doesn't need, it's not to be visible. And it goes over there, that goes down there. Push that down, that clips onto that, and then these tabs. Just make sure they're popped into the carpet. That's one. Same again on the other side. So get that lined up and clicked in there. That's all lined up there, and then these tabs are both in the carpet. Very good. Next is getting the variable boot back in. So we want to kind of shift it around so we get this channel lined up with the reinforcing bar. That should just hook over like that, and then we can just turn these to cover the bar. One's going to need two hands. There we go. And then these bits click down like that. We'll make sure that this lever is fully across and locked in. Likewise with this. You can give it a lift up and make sure it doesn't come up. And then we reach over and there is the rest of the boot. Put the side covers in a bit, and then if you want to lay it down flat, pull the boot floor forward, like that. You don't even need to pull the levers on it, you just pull the boot floor forward. You push in these supporting bits here. This is a bit of a two-hand job. There we go. Slots down, and then because this bar has now rotated and down the bottom, you can push this forward. Floor goes down. It's now at the lower level, and there we are. And to return it to its original position, you just grab, give it a pull, get it up on top of the supports, and push back in like that. Ta-da! So that is how to put everything back in. The final part are these trim pieces, which go on the D-pillars. And the way to do that is you get these plastic bits and you line them up, plastic tabs, And you just make sure that's going to engage on that. Give it a wiggle, give it a whack. You should hear a couple clicks. Make sure the rubber trim is over the top of it. Give it a couple of whacks like that. Same on the other side. And that's all together. There you are. So that is how to completely take in and take out the internal boot trim of a Skoda Octavia Mk3 2016 to, well, 2015 to 2017 or 18, whatever it is.
So that's it, and that's all of it. If you have any questions, please post them in the comments or go to briskoda.net, go to the forums there. I'm quite active, and you can post a thread on there if you've got a Skoda of any age and any model, and there's loads of helpful people, including myself, who'd be happy to help. Any links that I've mentioned in this video, including Briskoda, they'll all be in the description. As always, thank you for watching. If you do have any requests on any other pieces of trim that you want me to remove and other things you want me to do, drop a message in the comments and I'll see if I can make a video on it. Ta for now.